All right, we're off. We're in first gear. So all the way up, down to second. And I'm gonna jump up to third. There we go. Now this is a 5-speed, which is highly desirable when it comes to the DS21 because you get that extra 5th gear for, when you're on the highway. And, to be honest, it's not a slow car. It doesn't feel as peppy as, or maybe as sporty as the Porsche 356 that I have. But what's interesting is the 356 that I have is 60 horsepower, while this is more like 120, 125. So this has a lot more horsepower, but it's a bigger car. And because of the way the suspension is kind of tuned, what's funny about it is that it sort of rocks a little bit more. And so when you come up to corners and things like that, you don't feel like you want to take a corner going fast because of the body roll. But the body roll is also what kind of makes it feel like you're floating on a cloud. These are the softest, most comfortable seats I have ever sat in as far as a car. I mean, it's like a lazy boy recliner. And the reason they probably don't make seats like this anymore is because, gosh, it's so comfortable. Maybe I just close my eyes just for a second. It's something you could easily take a nice little snooze in. And, it's just such a quirky car. And of course, most of us are used to driving cars that are automatic, and so manual transmission, okay, well, there's a lot of manuals, but the manual up here on the steering column in 1972 was, most cars in the 70s, I mean, there were still some up on the column, but a lot of cars were down on the floor. So we're in third right now. I could go straight down to fourth. And so if you picture this right here, basically, picture a 6-speed transmission, so manual, so 3 lines, but instead of being flat like this, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, you have it like this. So if I went straight up there, I'd be in first. I'm going to go down to second. Didn't quite like that because I'm going 30. So this is second right here. And now straight up and just a little bit over is third. And then straight down would be fourth. So I'm going to drop down to fourth. All right. So now we're in fourth, and then up just over there is fifth. And reverse on this is where you would, I guess, have 6th gear in a traditional kind of on the floor 6-speed manual. So, it's a little different, but I like it. It's kind of like a little challenge. And of course, there's no indicator of which gear is which. For the stupid Americans, why? The French, they know what gear is where. Americans, you figure it out. Speaking of stupid fat Americans, the pedals down here are itty bitty. They're so tiny. The gas pedal is, I would say it's about this wide. It's like a little kind of like just a, I don't know, what shape? It's just like a little kind of just a little piece of metal. It really doesn't have much going on there. It's fine. I mean, it works. My big fat American foot isn't having too much of a problem with it. But then, of course, on the other side, let's see. See if I can get around this fella. On the other side, you've got the brake, which is the brake button, not the pedal. So it's not an actual pedal, it's that little button. It's like a little bulb that you kind of push down on, and that, with the hydraulic fluid, is what pushes the brakes. So let's see. I'm just gonna spin in here for 1 second. So you may remember this. I came back here when I filmed an episode with the Porsche 993 Turbo. All right, so let's see. All right, I think I might have been in third. All right, now I'm in first for sure. So that nice cushy hydraulic suspension. This one, I'm not even going to try to kick up any dirt in. You know, to be honest, this car feels a little more fragile, and it's not. You know, they're called Citroens. If you add a little more French, it's more of a Citroen. And some people said they were with a little more of a SH, a Citroen. Not the most reliable car. The automatic transmissions were not considered reliable. The manual transmission, good. And the 5-speed obviously better, but not uncommon to have leaks back in the hydraulic fluid area because we've got this, just the way this kind of suspension is set up. All right, so now that I'm stopped, let's just go over the transmission one more time. So we've got first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then reverse is back and down like that. All right, so let's keep it going. One thing I will say though, although I'm not going to kick up any dirt, when I pull forward, you can feel the back. It kind of, it's like it absorbs the torque as you kind of like pull forward. So earlier I was out like on a hill stop, and I was kind of like, you know, using the clutch just to make sure I wasn't going to roll back. And the back of the car is bouncing up and down as I'm, you know, each time I kind of like put my foot on the gas. So it's kind of funny. I can imagine that it looks really silly from behind, but I don't know. I've never driven behind one of these, so. Oops, I'm gonna give this guy, got a motorcyclist. All right. No, we got a Jeep. We got another car coming up. And the sun is bright. Well, you know what? This is a great time of day. Especially, we've got the colors here, which are awesome. All right. All right, so we're in first, down to second. All right, so we're in second here. And now I'm gonna go up to third. Up to third. And it really kind of knows, it pops into that gear. It doesn't want you to go from second to first. It naturally goes up to third. All right, so now we're in third, picking up a little bit of speed, and I'll drop it down to fourth. There we go. So this is a good cruising speed. I'm going like 45. You know, one of the things that's pretty cool about this car, of course, as many people already know, is that the headlights are connected to the steering wheel. Not unlike a new car, many new high-end cars, the headlights, they move with the steering wheel, so you light up different parts of the road as you turn on curvy roads. And so for this in 1972 to have it, and of course it had it, this was sort of towards the end of the production of this car, was pretty sophisticated. So the steering wheel does have an interesting feel to it, and I don't know if part of that is from the mechanism, which must be wires that are kind of holding that are connecting the lights. But I'm not sure. It's maybe just a combination of the extra engineering for the lights, plus cars of this era being just a little, I don't know, the steering is, it's not loose. It's actually kind of tight, but a little stiff. There's a little bit more resistance on it, but a very small move does create a bigger move in the vehicle. So compared to some of the steering of American cars of this generation, this era, the steering is definitely much tighter. All right, so we're gonna come down here into this curvy section. This is a great road to drive these old cars on. This road's curvy enough to have a little fun. It's not a lot of traffic. And this is a car that, although this would probably handle just fine on the highway, there's not really a lot of point in taking it on the highway because we'll just be in 5th gear, just kind of cruising. This is a little more engaging, and of course the view is really nice this time of year in the Berkshires. So I'm in 3rd gear right now. Alright. Coming up a hill, and then probably when I get to the top of the hill, I'll be able to drop back down to 4th. One of the things that's kind of interesting with this car is obviously the hydraulic suspension and the fact that it's adjustable. So I can reach down and sort of by my left foot, next to the emergency brake or the parking brake, I can adjust the different ride heights. So I'm on the lowest ride height right now, which I kind of prefer on the higher ride heights. It starts to get a little, it feels a little more like top heavy. It's not dramatically higher, but it is higher. So it feels a little more top heavy, and also when the suspension is stretched to its peak, it doesn't really absorb bumps because you're at the top. So it actually absorbs the cushion when you're kind of at the midpoint of the suspension, because then when you hit a bump, it can rise up and then drop back down and kind of self-level. And it does have that self-leveling from the front to the back, as I was mentioning, with being kind of on the hill stop and feeling it kind of bouncing. So on the one hand, it feels very comfortable. On the other hand, the level of cushiness, I do almost wonder if it could lend to a car sickness kind of feeling, because it's a little springy. I mean, it absorbs the cushions in the road, but in a way that you still feel them and they're just muffled, they're soft. It kind of rolls over them. So I wonder if I was sitting in the back seat on a long ride, if that would start to get a little old after a while. And I kind of feel like it might, but it's hard to say for sure. So we got our quick little pass. We're like 4,500 RPM, which is not super high. Downshift to 2nd and up to 1st. There we go. All right, and the blinker's on. All right, so this car, it has a nice idle. I don't feel like it's going to stall out or anything like that. And of course, if I wanted to increase the throttle, the idle just a little bit, I certainly could, but I don't even feel that that's necessary. It handles just fine. So let's see. All right, so here we're pulling out in 1st. So when I go to 2nd, there you feel it rock back down. And now let's go to 3rd, up and down. And let's go to 4th, up and back down. It's most dramatic in 2nd. Maybe I'll drop it back down to 3rd. Oops, doesn't want to go down to 2nd at this speed. All right, I'll go up to 3rd. Okay, down to fourth. So here around this corner, you can sort of, I feel that body lean to the left. And then as we come this way, sort of that body lean to the right. I am accustomed to not really liking the feel of that body roll in a car. Whenever I sort of feel that way, it sometimes feels that I'm at the edge of the car's limits, because of course most cars have tighter suspension and therefore don't have a lot of body lean and body roll. And maybe the sportier cars that I have certainly don't have that. But this one does, and so I think for a family car, a weekend cruise on a Saturday or Sunday, it's great. You just don't want to try to, hit top speeds in it or do anything crazy. You just kind of take it easy, you sit back, you got your armrest here. It's just a nice car to kind of cruise in. I would say this is probably as close as the French came to building a Cadillac, but compared to a Cadillac from '62, it's so much more sophisticated in the way it drives and handles, and the look of it is you just don't see them every day. And these were common cars. They made a lot of them. It's not like they're super, super rare, but I suppose, they didn't import a lot of them to the United States. They were much more common in Europe. And because they were a car that was driven, like a Honda Accord or something like that, they're not a car that was a survivor necessarily. A lot of them were driven hard, driven to 150,000 miles, whatever the case was, and then, sent to the scrapyard, especially when they started having problems with the with the transmission, or if it was an automatic transmission, or with the hydraulic brakes and stuff like that. All right. It definitely gets some looks. All three of those cars that just drove by, they're like, what? What the heck was that? I'm going to have to, they're going to be asking for a chiropractor tomorrow. Like, oh my God, I saw this Citroen go by and I twerked my neck, stupid Americans. But maybe that's why these were imported, just to wrench the necks of a couple of Americans. So I'll say when I'm driving it, I feel like the placement of the fact that you've got four pedals down here. You've got a gas pedal, a brake bulb, a clutch, and then the emergency brake. For some reason, it's something about it just feels a little off to me, and I guess it's because the brake isn't a real brake. And so I find myself putting my foot over and panicking for a second, stupid American, because I'm like, oh, there's no brake pedal. The button is further down than where a brake pedal would be. So it's just kind of, a sort of funny thing, but I'm sure something that you get used to. The only problem is that now when I switch back to a regular car, I'm going to be, I think I'm going to be hitting the brakes too hard because the brake pedal is so much higher. But we'll see. I don't drive this so much that I don't think it'll be a problem. But yeah, there's a part of me that keeps kind of like almost trying to brake with my left foot. I must be a very stupid American to do something like that, but it's just, that's the pedal. I don't know. It's something that takes a second to get used to. So in terms of kind of beyond the obvious, comfort, very comfortable, hydraulic suspension is great. The gear shift, it takes a little getting used to, but it's kind of fun. The brake pedal is kind of fun. Gauge cluster, very easy to read. The gas gauge is kind of like tiny. It's like really, really small. So it's hard to really see on the continuum exactly where you're at. The temperature gauge is also like really tiny. So that's kind of funny. Over on the far right, we've got our tachometer, and I mostly am cruising at, well, just under 3,000 right now. Picking up a little bit of speed in third gear, and then dropping down to fourth, and that drops me down to like 2,300 or so. So the tachometer is nice, it's easy to read, kind of has this green bar that goes up to like 5,800 RPMs, and then it's a red bar above that to an 8,000 RPM max. The speedometer itself is in miles per hour, and it has a stopping distance that moves sort of on the back side of the speedometer to tell you how many feet it's going to take you to stop on a dry road. Now, I'd have to kind of really get in there to see. By the time you're in there close enough to see, you're probably running yourself off the road. I can't tell what, how many feet it's indicating that I need for stopping distance. So I'm just going to disregard that. I'm going to go back up to third. Probably won't do a lot of heel-toe downshift in this car. You could, because the brake is so low, I guess. But it would be really awkward. And the brakes are actually very touchy. They're very sensitive. That hydraulic fluid is, I mean, it really snaps right on those brakes. So let's see, I'm going to go up to third here. What do I have here? All right, so we're going to go around this slowpoke. We've got a leaf peeper. All right, so up to 55, I guess. You know, it says, I feel like maybe it's telling me I'm going a little faster than I am. So center speedometer, pretty easy to read, except for the section that tells you how many feet it's going to take you to stop. And then on the left side, we have an entire gauge, an entire little cluster that's dedicated to our different like emergency kind of situations. And there's a little button that you can press to test the illumination of the bulbs to make sure they're working. And then we've got our blinkers left and right, and we've got a battery and a couple other different indicators right there. So you really have everything you need. But what I just love, and then over here we've got oil pressure and we've got volts in battery. But again, what I love about this is just the comfort. It's the same thing I really enjoyed about driving a Cadillac. I went to Las Vegas and drove the same Cadillac that they have in like Fear and Loathing Las Vegas. I don't remember what year it is now off the top of my head, but it's just nice Cadillac convertible, and that car felt like floating on a cloud. And a Buick Electra was another one that I drove that was a lot of fun. So, you know, it's kind of in that vein. This just very comfortable, smooth. The transmission is very smooth, no doubt about that. Nice smooth transmission, shifts well. And this is a car that would be, you know, great for taking a drive with, you know, grandma and, you know, kids in the back, go get some ice cream. The only thing that would make it better is convertible, no top. Now, I'll say I really like the look of the top, because I like the look of the blinkers in the back and the color. So the top on this one is black and the body is green. On some cars, the body would be green and the top would be white. You could have done different colors or match it, but I like the two color combination. And yeah, it just is it's a nice looking car with the top. But I like convertibles because, you know, they're just kind of, for Sunday cruiser, it feels like a convertible is perfect for that. So although, you know, that might be my sort of real preference, they did make this in a convertible, and they made a very, very small number of them, and they sell for anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000. And they are expensive. And the only one that is for sale right now that I've seen is an automatic transmission, and for me, that's a deal breaker. This Shark is out. I'm not going to drive an automatic transmission, not in this car. Let's see. So we're actually going to jump up this road. I didn't realize this was a dirt road, but I'm committed to it now, so I'll go slow. And although this is a dirt road, I barely even feel the bumps. Just smooth as can be. Now this is also a front-wheel drive car. A lot of American cars of this era with a front engine were rear-wheel drive. So a rear-wheel drive car, of course, in northern climates where you have snow, the back is kicking around, you're just constantly kicking the back around. So in this, with front-wheel drive, you've got the engine right over the front wheels, of course. It actually, these aren't as bad in the snow as their American counterparts with rear-wheel drive. Not that I think that this is necessarily a car that I will ever drive in the snow. I think for people in the 70s or in the late 60s that had one of these models, probably wouldn't have had too much issue driving it in the snow. You certainly could have put chains on it. You have the ability to increase the ride height. And so go down here and I'll bump the ride height up a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna go up to the top. Now let me just check. Now see, I can't see for sure, but I think that's, yeah, so I'm at the top now of the ride height. And so see that now it feels much firmer. It feels much firmer as I hit those bumps. But I think the purpose of the ride height, if you put it up this high, is so you could drive over, drive through a ditch or drive over a log or something like that. But it's really firm. It's not as comfortable. It's definitely not as comfortable. I wouldn't recommend keeping it at this height. And it's almost like bouncy just because I think it's right at the very, very top of the extreme. So now I can't reach. Fat American. God dang it. All right. I got to take my seatbelt off. All right, I'm going to reach down. And so I can feel one notch, second notch, and then that would be going all the way to the bottom, which I don't want to do because if I bottom out, when you're all the way at the very bottom, you've got about 2 inches of ground clearance on the exhaust. So, let's see, I'm going to slow down here and bottom out because it's cool. All right, so let me just come to a stop. I'm going to drop it all the way down. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay, you feel it? You see how it kind of dropped down? I don't know if you saw. All right. So now we're gonna low rider in this car. Okay. Now it's popping back up. It springs back up on its own. Probably because it's like, you stupid American, why are you driving this bottomed out? Well, let's do it again. Okay, so I'm gonna take my foot off the brake. Let's see, and as I take my foot off the brake, it releases the pressure and we drop back down. Boy, but it pops right back up again. I wonder if it's, I must not be putting it in all the way. Let's see. All right, let's try like this. Okay, so there we're like that. Oh boy, this seatbelt, it's really tricky. I don't know why. Just locks up on you. Well, now I can't get it out. And that thing popped up again. It must just know, maybe it's part of the way it is, that it's like, hey, if you're in gear and the car's running, let's go up to the lowest setting. All right, so now we're coming up to the lowest setting. There we go, bouncing up. Okay. All right. So although it would be cool to drive through town with 2 inches of clearance on the lowest setting, and technically with my foot, I can hold it down. Here we go. All right. So I just have to keep 1 foot over there, 1 foot here, and then when it comes to shift gears, I could either use one of my hands. Let's see. I'm gonna try to use my hand. So I can do it. I actually can do it, and that's the way you drive it. So you keep 1 foot right there, you keep 1 foot there, and you use your hand for the clutch. So I would recommend that. All right, so I'm gonna let this pop up. There we go. All right, so now we're coming up ride height and clicking it in. You just have to learn to finesse it, that's all. So I think you guys have learned something here. I know I've learned something. This has been a fun ride. It's a great car. It's something that you won't see on the road every single day, and I would highly recommend jumping in one of these if you ever get a chance, because just sitting in the seats, man, they just don't make seats like this anymore. I wish they did, but they unfortunately, sadly, do not. So this is a car that's staying in the collection. I would consider, and I've been looking for one of these for a while. The only other one for sale right now is in Hawaii, in the United States. And you know, Hawaii, let me switch gears here. Hawaii is obviously just not going to work super well. So two things here. So first, I stand by what I said on Hawaii. Second, I'm also going to stand by what I said about the gas gauge being really, really small. Just ran out of gas. So is it the French, maybe perhaps, making the gas so small? So stupid American gets stranded on the side of the road. Well, yeah, it does seem that way. So, all right, well, I'm out of gas, and I will see you guys for the next episode of Tire Kickers. What's up, everyone? All right, well, if you made it to the end of this video, you must also be a tire kicker just like me. So hit that subscribe button and come over to tirekickers.com to check out some articles that I've written about some of my favorite cars, including that 23 window 1961 VW bus.